2026 Santa Clara Vanguard is called With Reckless Abandon. It's about youth, it's about vulnerability, it's about pushing boundaries, it's about finding what those boundaries are and how to find yourself within these boundaries.
The two words together, you have reckless, which could mean dangerous or risky, but it also means very freeing. And abandon could mean leaving something, or it could be meaning very vulnerable. So having this vulnerable state of freedom.
Doing something with reckless abandon can be looked at from so many perspectives. It could be something that feels dangerous and maybe that's not quite right and we're going too close to the edge, or it could be the most freeing thing a person can do, coming from a state of vulnerability and kind of finding themselves and owning themselves.
Everything you need to know is in the title. We always want to have a program that can connect to our performers, and there's a certain youthful energy about being reckless and not caring about all of the things that could happen.
A lot of the inspiration for this year's costume or uniform design is based off of reckless sports. We got inspiration from motocross sports, and so you'll see elements of this in the uniform design, from the pleather on the jacket to the ripped shorts on top of the pants. There's a really cool feature on the brass uniform where when their horns are up and they're playing, it kind of covers their full arm. And the moment they drop their arms, you'll see a little peak of skin, which kind of also represents a little bit of vulnerability. As far as the color guard uniform, we kind of lean towards youth, like school uniform. It represents, them, they're pushing boundaries and they're trying to test things.
It's super exciting. I think it's a little edgier than normal. But the variety is the thing that I think really hits me as interesting. It stays interesting the whole time because of all the variety that's happening in the show. This year, Dan Morrison, the program coordinator, kind of pitched a soundtrack to All's Quiet on the Western Front. If you know that soundtrack, it really can be summed up in the first 3 notes of the whole thing.
And that's juxtaposed with the first 4 notes of the Bayana melody that have a very different feel. And that juxtaposition exists through the show in vastly different ways. Broadly speaking, the 3-note motif dominates the beginning of the show, and as we move through the show, we hear more of the Bayana theme, and in the end, that 3-note motif actually resolves and is transformed through the process of the show and all the things that happen in it. Our visual team is bringing that to life and bringing that tension into what we're seeing, I think, is really engaging.
The idea of the jump rope came first. And the jump rope, for me, was very symbolic of youth. From what I've seen from jump rope artists, there was a parallel to drum corps. It's very athletic, but it's also choreography, and it's artistic. The chains were symbolic for a different reason. If we're going to live life with reckless abandon, it has to come from someplace bound. It has to come from someplace restrictive. So those chains represent restriction. Ensuring these tight bonds with each other was another metaphor for the chains.
I think it reflects perspective too, that flips in a pretty significant way in the show as well, where there's going to be a moment there'll be a moment that seems very devastating that ends up being really uplifting in the end. And I think it's the same thing. The chains seem like these things that are going to bind us, but we find a new perspective, and they're actually something that we can use in a totally unexpected way that propels us forward. And so I think there's good parallels there.
The stage that runs between the front row of the front ensemble and the second row, with performers being at eye level with other performers moving across the stage, there's inherent recklessness to that. And then there's also abandon too. There is this vulnerability of being as close to the audience as you possibly can.
Imagine being bound, being held down, oppressed. Imagine being able to see through that oppression freedom and how much you would work to get out of that. And imagine once you do find that freedom. Well, that's what we want to share with our program this year. We want to show you the darkness as much as we can so that we can all celebrate the light. And we're doing this through a program that allows our performers to use their youthful energy, bring their honest selves to the moment, and actually take that same journey from oppression and being bound to freedom and seeing how that feels and taking our audience on that ride.